Okay, we've got quite a few people on the line, so why don't we get started here? Again, if anybody has any issues or questions with the audio or viewing today's webinar, please raise your hand or enter something into our Q&A and chat. But good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Laura Keys. I'm one of the founders at RF Solutions. At RF Solutions, we partner with leading technology providers to deliver in-building life safety wireless communications. RF Solutions was founded 4 years ago to deliver these services, and we're always looking to identify new products that innovate and enhance the performance or reduce the cost of our solutions. RF Solutions is a leading provider of public safety communications in the greater New York City metro area, especially in auxiliary radio communications, better known as ARCs, in New York City. In addition to public safety systems, the RF Solutions portfolio includes in-building distributed antenna systems, which is better known as DAS, cellular reinforcement, and two-way radio communications. Today, you're going to hear from Tom Kuklo, and Tom is the Global Product Manager for Indoor Solutions at Radio Frequency Systems. Radio Frequency Systems is a world leader in the manufacture of coaxial cables. Radio Frequency Systems has manufactured the first and only in-building coaxial cable to survive 2 hours under fire conditions without any additional protection and is certified by UL. This cable is fittingly named DragonSkin. We're very excited about the possibilities this new cable offers and thought you'd be fired up about it too. At the end of the webinar, we're going to have a brief Q&A, so please add your questions to the Q&A panel that you see below. Also, a recorded version of this webinar is going to be available, as well as the presentation deck. After the webinar, you'll receive an email with directions on how to download related content. So without any further ado, welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate the introduction and the opportunity to do this webinar today with RF Solutions and have all of you here to talk and listen about DragonSkin. You should be seeing on your screen now a dark screen with the words DragonSkin written in red across it. As Laura said, DragonSkin is an innovative product that RFS has been working on for about 3 years. And the idea was, after talking with some customers and some installers and a number of people around the industry, the idea was to try to come up with and solve and innovate a cable that could survive the rigors of high temperature. And so what we have been able to do is exactly that. And the idea is geared around NFPA 72, NFPA 1221 now, and the testing of UL 2196. NFPA 72 addresses pathway survivability. And basically what NFPA 72 says and what it does is, for local municipalities, if you've adopted it, it creates a standard in the enforcement of fire code regulations. And part of that gets to the emergency communication systems and the components within that system. NFPA 72 has a number of different levels of survivability that are that cables or just regular components and pieces, parts, need to meet depending on what has been accepted and where they are within the system. There's all the way up through level 3. DragonSkin meets the requirements of level 2. We are a 2-hour fire rated circuit integrity and fire resistive cable. And based off of the testing and everything that we go through at UL, we also meet the requirements of level 3 from the standpoint of there are no issues when we are put into a system that also has a sprinkler system. So we help meet both of those requirements. NFPA 1221 is, and if you look at the latest edition, the 2019 edition, if we look at NFPA 1221, there are requirements that include two-way radio enhancements and the pathway survivability. But in particular, 2019 specifically says in section 5.5.1.1, where fire survivability is required, a listed electrical circuit protected system or a fire rated cable that is listed to maintain circuit integrity shall be used. DragonSkin is that cable. And we have undergone the rigors of UL 2196 to be certified and listed in UL. There are a couple of ways that in the past have been used to provide that survivability. And I'm going to walk through those, and then I'm going to specifically talk about DragonSkin. One of these is concrete with a conduit embedded in that concrete. This is typically a solution that is deployed when you're talking about building a new building, and you basically have an open pallet to be able to run the run the cement. I don't see it very often, especially in areas where we're talking about retrofits. Another methodology is the 2-hour fire barrier, but basically what's known as the 2-hour soffit. This allows you to have a raceway that is protected. You can have a number of cables running through it, and it's protected from the fire. Honestly, I don't see this very often, and part of it gets to the cost as well as the amount of space that it takes up. Third option today is a fire wrap. And the picture that you see on the right-hand side is actually, it looks kind of like an HVAC, part of an HVAC system. In reality, it is a standard 1/2-inch plenum rated coax in a 2-inch conduit wrapped with 5 layers of fire wrap. And basically what this does is it creates a raceway, a fire protected raceway, but it's about 8 inches in diameter approximately. The new way to be able to do this, and in RFS's viewpoint, the best way to be able to do this is with DragonSkin. The cable that you're looking at in the picture is a true depiction of DragonSkin. DragonSkin is a 1/2-inch cable. It is a standalone fire resistant cable that does not need any conduit or fire wraps in order to be able to protect it from the ravages of fire. DragonSkin is a perfect solution when you start talking about retrofits in an existing building. And not only can it be used, because a lot of questions come up about the risers and running DragonSkin through the riser up to the various floors of a building. DragonSkin is rated and approved for use not only in the riser, but also on horizontal runs. DragonSkin, when we talk about it, I'm going to start by showing a couple of pictures of what happens in UL. And what when we talk about withstanding temperatures to 1,850 degrees for 2 hours, we all understand that it's hot. The picture on the left shows what those cables look like actually in the oven, in the burn, what we call the burn wall. And what ends up happening in here is that the cables are mounted on a wall. The wall is slid into the oven. It is locked in place, and immediately gas jets, about 20 of them, I believe, are turned on. They generate about 1 million BTUs of heat, and that cable goes from room temperature to 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit in about 12 minutes or so. That is a significant test on the cable to begin with, because it is such a very high ramp of temperature. But that's what many people we would expect to see in certain fires. So that's why the test is done this way. And then over the next period of time, the temperature is ramped up to 1,850 degrees. and the cable is in there for 2 hours. The second part of the test is what you see on the right-hand side. And on the right-hand side, when you've hit the 2-hour mark, the wall is pulled out away from the oven. It is moved over about 20 feet or so to the side, and a fire hose is turned on. It's turned on and the cable is sprayed. It's sprayed in a pattern that hits both the horizontal and the verticals. You can see both horizontal cable on this wall as well as some vertical runs on the right-hand side. The importance of this is exactly what happens in a fire situation. You have the heat from the fire and the flames itself, and then you turn around and you douse it with water as it's put out by our emergency responders and firefighters. And that puts a significant amount of strain on the cable. What we have been able to do is to prove and survive not just the heat, not just the water spray, but continue to pass RF through this entire time. The significance of this is if you think about a 10-story building and DragonSkin's installed on the riser. Let's just talk about the riser for right now. So DragonSkin's running up the vertical of the building. There's a fire on the 6th floor. And as a matter of fact, it's not just on the 6th floor, it's right where the DragonSkin cable is running. What ends up happening is DragonSkin survives. And as the emergency responders come in and start to fight that fire, they're staging on the floors below, they're getting up onto the 6th floor to fight the fire, they've evacuated the 7th floor. What we are able to do with DragonSkin is we are able to make sure that the firefighters on all the floors below the fire, on the fire floor, and on those floors above the fire can continue to communicate. That's the strength of DragonSkin. It protects our firefighters. If we look at really what the value proposition is, it's exactly what I just said a moment ago. DragonSkin protects mission critical public safety communications to save lives. DragonSkin is, and I'll repeat this, the first and only in-building cable certified without adding metal conduit and extensive wrapping or putting it in a fire-resistant enclosure. And DragonSkin simplifies, accelerates, and reduces the cost of installing a fire-resistant communications cable. And as I said a couple of times, we are the only one that is certified by UL. The value proposition as we start talking about some of the key characteristics of DragonSkin. DragonSkin is thin. DragonSkin is a 1/2 inch cable. That's exactly what you get. It comes on a reel, and the way that you're used to installing a plenum rated coax cable today, like my ICA 12, and if it's red, it would be ICA 12-50 JPLR. That's my part number. Anyway, it's a 1/2 inch cable. It's almost identical in size to that cable, compared to up to 8 inches for some of the other options. It protects. It withstands the 1,000 degrees heat, the high heat condition, and it's safer. We don't emit smoke, and we are plenum rated so that we can be used in an environmental air handling space. We're flexible. DragonSkin has a 7-inch bend radius, so it makes it easy to pull it within walls, to pull it through the walls, and the openings that might be in a wall don't have to be large. They can be small to fit the cable, and then they can be sealed back up. We're lightweight. I'll show you that in a moment. We do fast installation, meaning if you're used to installing an ICA cable today, you can install DragonSkin. And we have a total lower cost of ownership. A lot of that due to our smaller size, the amount of time that we save in the installation, as well as the cost of the cable. If we kind of try to do a little simple comparison here, because to me, visuals are wonderful. They tell a lot more than just listening to me. If we take a look at the DragonSkin cable, this is the DragonSkin cable relative to one of the other solutions that's in the marketplace today. That is using a high temperature plenum and wrapping it with 3 layers of heat tape or fire tape around plenum and around a conduit. Now, if I really take a look at what happens if I took this and I moved it over here, I moved the 3-inch minimum over to here, and we talked about what that 8-inch size looks like. It would actually exceed the size of the screen over here, and we wouldn't even be able to see the entire thing on the screen. This is one of the great things that we bring with DragonSkin. Not only does it protect and help lives and protect the communication system, it's easy to install and it doesn't take up a lot of space. And a lot of times when we talk about running cables through buildings, space is a premium. So the smaller the amount of space that you can take up, the better off you are. Here's a couple of the key characteristics of DragonSkin that I've heard from various installers and integrators around the country as I've talked to people about what are the things that you look at and what is important as we were looking at developing DragonSkin. Does it require conduit? No. Now I do realize in some jurisdictions, AHJs are requiring conduit. DragonSkin can be put in conduit. I will be going back to UL for further testing to have it the official certification for in conduit. And as soon as travel restrictions are lifted, we'll be able to do that. If it wasn't for the pandemic and some of the restrictions we have today, we would have already been back on the wall to get the certification. Conduit in cement, that does require it. 2-hour burn soffit does not require conduit, and of course the fire wrap option does. Our solution size is 1/2 inch. That is critical. As I was talking to people, I said, well, what if our solution was 3/4 of an inch, 7/8 of an inch, or even up to an inch? And I was told that no, we really need to keep it as close to a 1/2 inch as possible. Make it as close to the standard as standard 1/2 inch as regular plenum rated cable is today. That's what we've been able to do. If we look at the comparisons, conduit in cement is a minimum of 2 inches plus the size of the cement. Typical 2-hour soffits are 6 inches by 12 inches, and the fire wrap option is up to 8 inches. Flexibility was key. We've got a 7-inch bend radius. And where this becomes extremely important is when you think about some of the installs that you may have done or that you've run across. You've got drawings, you run through your design, you've got your design, you go into the building, and all of a sudden there's a wall there. There's an obstruction of some kind that did not show up on the original drawings. The 7-inch bend radius helps us work around those and makes it easier to continue with the installation. The fire wrap option has an 8-inch bend radius as a minimum. Ease of installation, we fit into tight spaces. Conduit in cement, like I said, is primarily for new construction. And then the other two, the soffits and the fire wrap option, typically require a minimum of 12-inch clearance. One of the things to keep in mind for the fire wrap option, and it doesn't show up on the screen that I showed a few minutes ago with that picture, but when you need to hang the fire wrap option from a wall where you're not just coming through the wall, but you actually have to hang it from a ceiling, like in a parking garage, or when you have to attach it to a firewall. Not only do you have the size of the 8-inch size of the fire wrap solution, you also have to take into consideration the hanger and fire wrapping the hanger. When you talk about DragonSkin and look at installing DragonSkin, the hangers are part of the solution, and the hangers were tested at UL and tested to survive the 2 hours with the cable. So when you talk about that, we talk about our solution, and in UL terminology, that solution has an FHIT number assigned to it, and that's number 1250. That is the solution. When we talk about the rest of this, looking at this, the solution weight, we're 1/3 of a pound per foot. Conduit is greater than 10 pounds per foot. 2-hour burn soffits are greater than 3 pounds per foot, and the fire wrap option is typically greater than 4 pounds per foot. That isn't the whole story. The story is really getting down to total cost of ownership as well. If I take a look and use DragonSkin as the standard here, DragonSkin has a cost of 1. We'll just use that as a relative number. When I talk about conduit and cement, in new construction, it's about half the cost. When I talk about it in retrofit, and many people would say, really? You'd really look at doing a retrofit with conduit and cement? Only where it's applicable. But I do know of at least one situation where a building owner really wanted to get his certificate of occupancy. As the inspection was going on with the fire marshal's office, they realized there was 900 feet of cable that was communications cable that was not protected. At that time, DragonSkin wasn't available. The building owner really wanted to be able, he had commitments and he wanted to be able to get in there and to get his tenants in and get everything set up. So he made the decision to install conduit and install that in cement. As a retrofit, that cost him over $500 a foot to implement. And he had a 900-foot run. So he invested more than $450,000. But it was important to him to be able to do that. But what I'm saying here is that when you look at that, that is extremely high price compared to the cost of DragonSkin. When we look at a 2-hour burn soffit, DragonSkin is about 2.4 times cheaper, or the other way to look at it is the 2-hour burn soffit is 2.4 times more expensive. And in the fire wrap option, if we look at standard plenum in a 2-inch conduit wrapped in fire wrap, that's about 3.6 times the cost of DragonSkin. And if you have a high temp plenum and wrap it in the same manner with 3 wraps in conduit, you're about 2.1 times. Of course, many of these numbers change a little bit depending on the labor rates that are paid within the cities and the jurisdictions. New York City being a high cost area, these numbers are probably a little bit on the low side, but you get the idea. As I've talked to people over the last month about DragonSkin and the introduction of DragonSkin, we've had a number of questions that have come up. And I'll address the questions that you all might have, but I thought maybe I'll walk through first some frequently asked questions so that we can get some of those out of the way. When are we accepting orders, and when are we going to start shipping? We are accepting orders now, and my first shipment of DragonSkin was shipped yesterday. We are in a ramp up mode in production. So as time goes by, we will be increasing our capacity significantly, and we will be working with our distribution partners to make sure that we can get cable into their hands so that it's available to y'all when you need it. Can DragonSkin be used in conduit? I've already stated that it can be. It is not certified in conduit. We hope to have that certification within the next couple of months. Is there a sampling plan available? Yes. We will evaluate samples and we will get them out as appropriate. It's more important for me to be able to get the cable out to customers who are looking to install it than samples, but we'll work on that. Is DragonSkin patented, and is the DragonSkin name and logo trademarked? The answer to both of those is yes. Can DragonSkin be sold and shipped anywhere in the world? You might think this is a little bit funny since we're talking about here in the US primarily. The primary market is the US. US is the only place that has adopted these NFPA standards and the UL 2196 standard as a testing to prove and to certify and list products that that meet the requirement. However, in the last few weeks, I've had inquiries from the Middle East, Canada, Brazil. I've had inquiries from all over the world, and so including the UK. The one thing I can't do is I cannot sell it in China, and it's only because of a potential trademark conflict. There is a company that already has the name DragonSkin. Are Vex files available for DragonSkin? Meaning, is it on IBWave? The answer is yes. And as a matter of fact, it's now on RanPlan if you use that platform. How are we going to ship DragonSkin? We will ship DragonSkin to your distribution partners, to our distribution partners, and your distributor of choice. We are going to ship it in approximately 1,000 feet per reel on a pallet. The distributor then will work with y'all to get it to the appropriate size that you need or appropriate lengths that you need. And then, are there suggested accessories and trim tool kits available? The answer is yes. The clamp 12 kit is the clamp that is approved by UL as part of our FHIT 1250 because it does survive the wall. We have a heat shrink tube to be able to go over the clamp, or sorry, over the connector, not over the clamp, over the connector. The connectors that we have approved so far are our C03 series and our D01 series. We also have a new connector that will be coming out shortly called E01. That has already been approved, but it is not available today. And then the trim sets, there are two trim tools that are available, one for the C series and one for the D and E series. The instructions for the trim tools also indicate that you can do a hand cut. You can do it by hand. For those people who are skilled and have been used to handling coax cable and implementing throughout buildings, you can use a saw and you can do it by hand. The trim tool set is not required. We do recommend its use. That is the end of my presentation, and I'll open it up for questions. What I want you to come away with this is RFS has developed and is now putting into the market an innovative product that will protect and save lives by working with your communication systems you're installing, and in the event of a fire emergency will protect that communication system and will ensure that the RF signals continue to get through the cable. We typically think of dragons, the mythical creatures of dragons that spew fire, and in ways that is exactly what we are, except this dragon eats fire and it keeps your cable protected. If there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer any. If they've come through on the chat, that would be great.
So thank you, Tom. That was very informative. I don't see any questions that have come up. If anybody has one, you can raise your hand or enter into the chat. If you don't, as I said, this presentation is going to be available as well as the presentation deck for anybody who comes in and requests it. So we hopefully will be talking to many of you in the weeks to come to help answer any of your questions and see how we can help you with any of your